While Democrats are at least attempting to move ahead on impeachment, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is throwing cold water on that move. Let's go to NBC's Sahil Kapoor, who's joining me now. I have a feeling you're going to pick up where Josh left off, Sahil. What are lawmakers saying about all this?
Alex, there's anger, there's fury, there's dismay, and most notably among Democrats, there's determination to do something about President Trump. They don't want to be the opposition party that sits back and doesn't act on something as grave as this. Now, the top two Democrats in Congress, Nancy Pelosi in the House and Chuck Schumer in the Senate, have said that the president should resign, the cabinet should remove him. As Josh pointed out, that is looking highly unlikely, and the only option they have here, if that doesn't happen, is impeachment. They're already circulating among Democrats articles of impeachment. One single article called Incitement of Insurrection that accuses the president of willfully inciting violence against the government of the United States.
All right, so picture this. You wake up, grab your coffee, scroll through the news, and boom, Capitol Hill is absolutely losing it. And I'm not talking about some normal political drama here. No. We're talking about lawmakers, actual members of Congress, standing up and demanding that Donald Trump and his closest advisors get arrested. Like right now. Arrested. Yeah, you heard that right. This isn't some fringe conspiracy theory floating around on the internet. This is happening in the halls of Congress. Real lawmakers from both parties, which is wild in itself, right, are calling for arrest warrants, criminal charges, prosecutions, the whole deal, and they're not being quiet about it either. They're screaming it from the rooftops. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
Sadly, the person who's running the executive branch is a deranged, unhinged, dangerous president of the United States. And only a number of days until we can be protected from him. But he has done something so serious.
So what the heck is going on? Why now? And who exactly are they trying to arrest besides Trump? Well, buckle up, because this story is absolutely insane. Here's what we know. New evidence just dropped. Audio recordings, to be specific. And apparently, these recordings show Trump directly coordinating efforts to disrupt the January 6th electoral certification. Not just talking about it, not just being angry, actually coordinating it, planning it. And here's the kicker. The recordings allegedly show he approved violent actions as tools to achieve his goal. Come on, if that's true, that's not just political scandal territory anymore. That's criminal territory. That's conspiracy territory. That's arrest warrant territory. But it doesn't stop with Trump. Oh no, lawmakers are naming names. Pam Bondi, she's on the list. Tulsi Gabbard? Yep, her too. They're being accused of facilitating this alleged conspiracy, providing political cover, basically being part of the whole operation. And Congress is done waiting around for the DOJ to maybe possibly eventually do something about it. They want action. Now, and look, I get it. Some of you are probably thinking, okay, but Congress doesn't have the power to just arrest people, right? And you're correct. They don't. But that's what makes this so unprecedented. Congress is stepping way outside its normal lane here. They're not just doing oversight. They're not just holding hearings or writing strongly worded letters. They're demanding that federal prosecutors and the Department of Justice move immediately on criminal charges. One lawmaker put it like this, and I'm paraphrasing here because the actual quote is buried in all the chaos. But basically, this is an unprecedented escalation from congressional oversight to demands for criminal justice intervention. We've never seen anything like this before. Congress is basically trying to force the DOJ's hand in public, on the record, with the whole country watching. Can you believe this? And here's where it gets even more dramatic. This whole situation is being fueled by findings from the special counsel's report. You know, the one that details Trump's alleged efforts to overturn the 2024 election results and use government power unlawfully. That report names multiple co-conspirators who allegedly participated in this effort. And now, with these new audio recordings supposedly backing it all up, Congress is saying enough is enough. But why does this matter so much? I mean, beyond the obvious legal drama and potential criminal charges. Well, think about it. This is a full-blown constitutional crisis. You've got the legislative branch publicly demanding that the executive branch arrest a former president who's now serving his second term. You've got both parties, coming together on this, which almost never happens anymore. And you've got the DOJ stuck in the middle, under massive public pressure to act. The markets are already getting nervous. Political chaos like this doesn't exactly inspire investor confidence, you know? And with everything else going on, inflation concerns, international tensions, domestic policy battles, this is just throwing gasoline on an already roaring fire. Plus, some of the advisors being named in all this were major players in controversial immigration and border security policies. So now you've got those debates getting dragged back into the spotlight too. It's all connected, it's all messy, and it's all happening right now. And let's be real for a second. This isn't Trump's first rodeo with legal trouble. We've seen impeachments, we've seen indictments, we've seen investigations and hearings and reports, but this feels different. This feels like the moment where political accountability might actually cross over into criminal accountability, where all the talk and all the outrage and all the investigations finally lead to what? Arrests? Trials? Convictions? We're about to find out. So yeah, Capitol Hill is exploding, lawmakers are demanding arrests, Trump's inner circle is under fire, and the whole country is watching to see what happens next. This isn't just another political scandal that'll blow over in a week. This is a defining moment for American democracy, for the rule of law, and for what accountability actually means in this country. And we're diving deep into all of it. Let's go. Okay, so let's slow down for a second and actually break down what's happening here. Because if you're just casually following the news, you might think this is just more political theater. Another day, another Trump controversy, right? But no, this is way bigger than that. First off, let's talk about these audio recordings, because that's really what's driving this whole situation. According to multiple reports, these recordings provide direct evidence of Trump coordinating efforts to disrupt the certification of the 2024 electoral results. And when I say direct evidence, I mean allegedly you can hear him talking about it, planning it, approving specific actions. Now, we haven't heard these recordings ourselves yet. They haven't been released to the public, but lawmakers have apparently had access to them, and their reactions have been intense. Like career politicians who've seen it all, who've dealt with every kind of scandal imaginable, are saying this is beyond anything they've encountered before. And here's what's really wild. The recordings don't just show Trump being angry or frustrated about losing. That honestly wouldn't be surprising. Lots of politicians get mad when they lose. No, these recordings allegedly show him actively coordinating with others to use violence as a tool, to disrupt the certification, to stop the peaceful transfer of power. If that's accurate, yeah, that's conspiracy, that's sedition, that's criminal. But let's talk about who else is being implicated here. Because it's not just Trump. Pam Bondi, who's been a longtime Trump ally and served in various advisory roles, is being named as someone who allegedly facilitated this conspiracy. Lawmakers are saying she provided political cover, helped coordinate messaging, basically acted as an enabler for the whole operation. And then there's Tulsi Gabbard, which, okay, that one surprised a lot of people. Gabbard has had this weird political journey, right? She started as a Democrat, ran for president in 2020, then gradually shifted towards supporting Trump and his policies, and now she's being accused of being part of this alleged conspiracy too. What exactly did she do? Well, according to the accusations, she helped provide legitimacy to Trump's claims about the election. She appeared at rallies, gave interviews, used her platform to amplify his message. And lawmakers are arguing that this wasn't just political support, this was active participation in a conspiracy to overturn election results. Now here's where things get legally and constitutionally complicated. Congress doesn't have the authority to arrest people. That's not how our system works. The legislative branch makes laws. The executive branch, specifically the Department of Justice and federal prosecutors, enforces those laws and brings criminal charges. So what Congress is doing here is essentially putting massive public pressure on the DOJ to act. They're holding hearings, releasing statements, demanding accountability, and they're doing it loudly, publicly, in a way that makes it really hard for the DOJ to just ignore them. But why is this so unprecedented? Well, Congress has investigated lots of things before. They've held countless hearings. They've issued subpoenas, demanded documents, grilled witnesses, but they've rarely, if ever, gone this far in publicly demanding specific criminal charges and arrests. That's usually seen as crossing a line, as interfering with the independence of the justice system. But clearly, at least some lawmakers think the situation is serious enough to warrant breaking that norm. And you've got to understand the context here. The special counsel's report that came out earlier laid out a pretty damning case. It detailed how Trump allegedly tried to use government power to overturn election results. It named multiple co-conspirators. It provided evidence of coordination, planning, and execution of a scheme to disrupt the certification. That report alone was explosive. But now, with these audio recordings apparently confirming and expanding on what was in the report, Congress is saying the evidence is overwhelming. They're saying the DOJ has everything it needs to act. They're saying there's no excuse for further delay. One thing that's getting lost in all the drama, though, is the bipartisan nature of these calls for arrests. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not like half of Congress is united on this, but you do have some Republicans joining Democrats in calling for accountability. And in today's hyper-partisan environment, that's remarkable. Why are some Republicans breaking ranks? Well, a few reasons. Some genuinely believe in the rule of law and think what allegedly happened was wrong, regardless of party. Some are probably worried about their own political futures and don't want to be associated with defending this. And some might just be reading the room and realizing which way the wind is blowing. But the fact remains, this isn't just Democrats going after Trump. This is broader than that. Now, let's talk about the economic angle for a second, because it's not just about politics and law here. Markets hate uncertainty. And right now, we've got uncertainty on steroids. You've got a constitutional crisis brewing. You've got potential arrests of high-level government officials. You've got massive political instability. Investors are nervous. Business leaders are nervous. Consumer confidence could take a hit. And if this situation escalates, if we actually see arrests, trials, protests, the economic impact could be significant. We're talking potential market volatility, reduced investment, maybe even impacts on GDP growth. Is that fair? Maybe not, but it's reality. Political chaos has economic consequences. And when you've got lawmakers publicly calling for the arrest of current administration officials, that sends shockwaves through the business community. CEOs start wondering about policy stability, investors start hedging their bets, international partners start questioning America's reliability. And then there's the immigration and border security angle, because several of the people being named in this alleged conspiracy were major architects of Trump's immigration policies, controversial policies that spark huge debates and legal challenges. So now, by extension, all of those old fights are getting dragged back into the spotlight. Critics are saying, see, the people who gave us family separation and the Muslim ban and all these other controversial policies were also part of a conspiracy to overturn an election. This shows their true character. Supporters are saying this is just a political hit job designed to discredit effective border security policies. It's all getting tangled together. Immigration, election integrity, rule of law, political accountability. It's one massive complicated knot. Here's another thing that's not getting enough attention. This whole situation is a test of our institutions, like a real serious test. Can the justice system handle prosecuting powerful political figures without being seen as politically motivated? Can Congress push for accountability without overstepping its constitutional bounds? Can the public separate legitimate concerns about rule of law from partisan warfare? These are hard questions, and we're about to get some answers. Some legal experts are warning that if the DOJ does bring charges, especially if it happens quickly in response to congressional pressure, it could set a dangerous precedent. They're worried about the appearance of the justice system being weaponized for political purposes. They're concerned about future administrations using similar tactics against their political opponents. Other experts are saying, no, actually, the precedent we need to set is that nobody is above the law. Not presidents, not advisors, not anyone. If there's evidence of crimes, charges should be brought, period. Both sides make valid points, and that's what makes this so complicated. But here's what we know for sure. This situation is not going away. The pressure on the DOJ is only going to increase. More evidence might come out. More lawmakers might join the calls for arrests. Public opinion could shift dramatically one way or another. And at some point, probably soon, the DOJ is going to have to make a decision. Do they bring charges? Do they announce they're not bringing charges and explain why? Do they punt and say they need more time to investigate? Whatever they decide, roughly half the country is going to be furious. That's just where we are right now. And that's before we even get to what happens if arrests actually do occur. Can you imagine Trump getting arrested? His close advisors getting perp walked? The media frenzy would be unprecedented. The political fallout would be massive. The public reaction, protests, counter-protests, legal challenges, it would dominate the news cycle for months. We're potentially on the brink of one of the most dramatic political moments in American history. And it's all happening right now, in real time, while we're watching. The tension in Washington is palpable. You can feel it. Staffers are nervous. Lawmakers are choosing their words carefully. Behind closed doors, there are probably frantic strategy sessions happening on all sides. Trump's team is likely preparing legal defenses. The DOJ is weighing its options. Congressional leadership is trying to figure out how far to push this. And through it all, the American public is divided right down the middle. Some people are demanding justice, saying it's about time someone held Trump accountable. Others are convinced this is all a setup, a conspiracy to take down a president they support. And a smaller group in the middle is just exhausted, wishing all of this would go away so we could focus on normal governance. But normal isn't coming back anytime soon, not with stakes this high, not with emotions this raw, not with the evidence allegedly showing what it shows. So yeah, this is a big deal, a really, really big deal. All right, let's get into the actual breakdown here. What does all this really mean? Where does it go from here? And why should you care? Beyond just the drama and the headlines. Point 1, the legal case. Let's be clear about what allegedly happened here. According to the evidence that lawmakers have seen, Trump didn't just complain about losing. He didn't just give some angry speeches. He allegedly coordinated a plan to disrupt the certification of election results. He allegedly approved the use of violence as a tool to achieve that goal. And he allegedly worked with multiple co-conspirators to execute that plan. If that's all true, we're talking about serious federal crimes. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Seditious conspiracy, potentially, maybe even insurrection-related charges. These aren't minor offenses. These carry serious prison time. And the audio recordings, if they're as clear as lawmakers are suggesting, would provide direct evidence, not circumstantial, not hearsay, direct evidence of Trump's involvement and intent. That's a prosecutor's dream, frankly, because proving intent is usually the hardest part of these cases. But if you've got recordings of the person literally explaining their plan and approving specific actions, yeah, that makes the case a lot easier. Now, Trump's defenders will argue that this is all taken out of context. They'll say the recordings don't show what prosecutors claim they show. They'll argue that Trump was just expressing frustration, not orchestrating a conspiracy, and they'll point to his right to challenge election results through legal channels. But here's the thing. There's a big difference between filing lawsuits and challenging results in court, which is totally legal and normal, versus coordinating efforts to physically disrupt the certification process. One is exercising your rights, the other is potentially criminal. And if these recordings really do show Trump approving violence as a tool, well, there's no legal gray area there. That's just straight up illegal. Point 2, the political implications. Even if no arrests happen, even if the DOJ decides not to bring charges for whatever reason, the political damage is already done. Trump's opponents now have even more ammunition. The 2026 midterm elections are going to be dominated by this issue. Every Republican candidate is going to be asked, do you think Trump should be arrested? Do you support him? Do you believe he did what he's accused of doing? And there's no good answer for most of them. Say yes, Trump should be arrested, and you lose his base. Say no, he shouldn't be, and you lose moderates and independents who are horrified by the allegations. Try to dodge the question, and you look weak and wishy-washy. Democrats, meanwhile, are going to run on accountability and rule of law. They're going to argue that this proves they were right all along about Trump. They're going to try to tie every Republican to these allegations, fair or not. It's going to be brutal. Campaign ads are basically writing themselves at this point. You'll see footage of the Capitol on January 6th, audio clips from these alleged recordings, statements from lawmakers calling for arrests. It'll be everywhere. And Republican candidates who've tied themselves closely to Trump are going to have a really tough time. They can't abandon him without alienating the base, but defending him gets harder and harder as more evidence comes out. Some Republicans are probably quietly hoping the DOJ does bring charges, because then they can say, well, it's in the courts now. Let's let the legal process play out and dodge having to take a clear position. It's a cop-out, but it might be their best political move. Point 3, the institutional crisis. This situation is forcing us to confront some really uncomfortable questions about how our system works. What happens when different branches of government clash? What happens when political pressure and legal process collide? What happens when roughly half the country believes one thing and the other half believes something completely different? Our institutions, Congress, the DOJ, the courts are designed to handle these kinds of conflicts, but they're being tested in ways they haven't been before. The polarization is so intense, the stakes feel so high, the trust in institutions is so low. If the DOJ brings charges, millions of people will see it as proof that justice works and nobody is above the law. Millions of others will see it as a political witch hunt and a weaponization of the justice system. If the DOJ doesn't bring charges, millions will see it as proof that powerful people get away with everything. Millions of others will see it as proof that the allegations were always bogus. There's no outcome here that brings the country together. The best we can hope for is that our institutions handle it professionally and by the book, and that most people eventually accept the results even if they don't like them. But that's a tall order in today's environment. Trusting government is at historic lows. Conspiracy theories spread faster than facts, and everyone's living in their own information bubble, consuming media that reinforces what they already believe. So when the DOJ makes its decision, whatever it is going to be filtered through these different bubbles. One side will see justice, the other will see persecution, and the divide will probably get even worse. Point 4. What happens next? So where does this actually go from here? Well, the DOJ is under massive pressure to respond. They can't just ignore this forever. My guess, and this is just speculation, is that we'll see some kind of statement or action within the next few weeks. Maybe they announce they're opening or expanding an investigation. Maybe they bring charges against lower level figures first, working their way up. Maybe they announce they've reviewed everything and don't believe charges are warranted, and they explain their reasoning. But they have to do something. The silence is becoming untenable. Congress has essentially called them out publicly. The media is demanding answers. The public wants to know what's going on. And if charges do come, oh boy, then you're looking at arrests, arraignments, probably months or years of legal proceedings, appeals, motions, media circuses, the whole thing. Trump would probably claim political persecution, rally his base, fundraise off it. He's done it before with other legal challenges, and it's been effective for him. His supporters see him as a victim of a corrupt system, and more charges would just reinforce that narrative. His opponents would celebrate it as accountability finally happening. They'd see it as validation that they've been right about Trump all along, and they'd demand that the legal process move quickly and result in convictions, and the rest of us would just be exhausted trying to keep up with it all. Because let's be honest, this has been going on for years now. Investigations, hearings, reports, charges, trials, it's relentless, and it's exhausting. One more thing to consider: the international implications. Like, how does this look to the rest of the world? America, the supposed beacon of democracy, potentially prosecuting a former president and current leader. Some countries will see it as proof that our system works, that rule of law matters. Others will see it as evidence of American chaos and decline. And our adversaries, Russia, China, Iran, they're going to use this for propaganda. They're going to say, see, American democracy is a sham. They prosecute their political opponents, just like authoritarian regimes do. Even if that's not a fair comparison, even if the situations are completely different, they're going to say it anyway. Our allies are probably nervous too. They depend on American stability and leadership. When the U.S. is consumed by internal political battles, it's harder for us to focus on international challenges. It makes us less reliable as a partner. It creates opportunities for adversaries to make moves while we're distracted. So yeah, the stakes here are enormous. This isn't just about Trump. It's not just about partisan politics. It's about what kind of country we are and how our system handles its biggest test. Look, I know this is heavy stuff. I know it's exhausting keeping up with all of this, but this is genuinely one of those historical moments where we're going to look back and say that was when things changed. For better or worse, this is a turning point. The calls for arrests are real. The evidence apparently exists. The pressure is mounting. And sooner or later, someone's going to have to make a decision that half the country will hate. Where do I think this ends up? Honestly, I don't know. Part of me thinks the DOJ will bring some charges, maybe not against Trump directly at first, but against some of his co-conspirators. They'll test the waters, see how it goes, and then decide whether to go all the way. Another part of me thinks they'll find some way to punt, claim they need more time or more evidence, or that there are legal complications that prevent prosecution. Basically find a way to avoid making the hard decision. But what I do know is this: we're in uncharted territory. The normal rules don't really apply anymore. And whatever happens next is going to reshape American politics for years, maybe decades to come. There's also the question of timing. When does all this happen? Before the 2026 midterms? After? Does the DOJ wait until they have an absolutely airtight case? Or do they move quickly to respond to congressional pressure? Each choice has consequences. Move too fast and you risk looking political. Move too slow and you look like you're protecting powerful people. It's a no-win situation for the DOJ, honestly. And through all of this, the American people are watching. They're forming opinions. They're choosing sides. They're deciding what they believe and who they trust. And those decisions are going to shape our politics for a long time. So keep watching. Keep paying attention. Because this story is far from over. In fact, it might just be getting started. And hey, if you think this is wild now, just wait. Because if arrests actually happen, if trials start, if we see Trump and his advisors in courtrooms facing criminal charges, the drama we've seen so far will look tame by comparison. The next few months are going to be absolutely insane. And we'll be here covering all of it, breaking it down, and making sense of the chaos. Because somebody's got to do it, right? This is the story that's going to define this moment in history. Don't look away now. The most dramatic chapters are probably still ahead of us.